be too loud. I think it's a little bit on the loud side. Chandra, maybe reduce the volume teeny bit. It's okay with me, but I have a feeling that...
It's okay with me too.
You are sitting very close.
That's why.
Okay, but there's no echo, that it's okay. Is there any...
It's very clear at the back.
Teeny bit less. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunattu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namah Shri Shankarananda
Namaste Shankarananda
Guru Padam Bhujanmane
Guru Padam Bhujanmane
Savilasa Mahamoha
Savilasa Mahamoha
Graha Grasaika Karmane.
Graha Grasaika Karmane.
Chant 38 through 41. 38, 39, 40, 41. 4 verses. Starting with verse number 38. Abhane sthula dehasya
Bhavane Sthula Devasya
swapne yadbhanamatmanaha
Swapne Yadbhanamatmanaha
sonvayo vyatirekastat
Sonvayo Vyatirekastat
bhane jnanavabhasanam
Bhane Jnanavabhasanam
Lingabhane sushuptau syat
Lingabhane sushuptau syat
Atmano bhanamanvayaha
Atmano Bhanamanvayaha
Vyatirekasthu tadbhane
Vyatirekasthu tadbhane
Lingasya bhanamuchyate
Lingasya bhanamuchyate
Tadvivekad viviktasyuhu
Tadvivekad viviktasyuhu
Koshaf pranamano prakoshaf pranamanodhiyaha
Kosha pranamanoviyaha
Dehi tatra gunavastha
Dehi tatra gunavastha
Bhedamatrat prithakkritaha.
Vedamatrat prithakkritaha.
Sorry. Bhedamatrat prithakkritaha.
Vedamatrat prithakkritaha.
Sushuptyabhane bhanam tu
Sushuptabhane bhanam tu
samadhavatmanonvayaha
samadhavatmanovayaha
vyatirekastvatmabhane
Vyatirekastvatmabhane
sushuptiyanavabhasanam.
Sushuptiyanavabhasanam.
So I think in summary, what the Shastra would like us to see, it's amazing that such a, in a way, a small mistake creates such a big problem. You know, just a slight aviveka, lack of discrimination, creates a huge problem in our lives in terms of how the whole thing is just turned around. The classical example is that if you can imagine, this is exactly what happens, that if you have a wave of the ocean who just doesn't understand that his identity is misplaced. It is not the wave is not the identity, but the water is the identity. Just a small mistake. Imagine the implications of that in the life of the wave of the ocean. Imagine, it's just exactly like our lives. So the wave thinks that I am very vulnerable, and appropriately so. All these conclusions that stem from this aviveka are just mind-boggling. The wave thinks I'm very vulnerable in the sense that I can go anytime. And the only way to have some self-esteem is to compare with other waves. And there's no such thing as the best wave possible. And we are all looking to be the best person. We are not satisfied by small criticisms by someone, even though we may have some strengths and so on, but we don't like any, and this this is the thing, is Swami Dayanand used to say that. He says, one of the worst emotional problems we have is rejection. I just come to think about it. We don't like to be rejected. And big rejections are a big problem, even small rejections. Small rejections mean a criticism. Someone close to you, your spouse. This is why I think spouses are very important for you. Very important. Because really, I tell you, I'm not joking. Spouses are specially sent by Ishvara. Specially. They have created, because you see, if you're not married, imagine what will happen. If you're not married, you don't care about anybody's. You may have some close friends who criticize you, but generally speaking, you don't care. Okay, so what happens if somebody criticizes you? Break off the relationship. You don't see them again. I don't want to talk to you, because why do you have to be pointing out some bad things about me? And so, really speaking, you don't take criticisms to heart. But when you're married, this is a very interesting situation. Because how is Ishvara going to criticize you? Hey, you are doing a bad thing. There's no varni from the loudspeaker that comes in. It comes in through your spouse. Really? Hey, why did you do this? We talked about this. How many times do I have to tell you this? So really, that puts you down a little bit. Just when you're thinking you're doing well, so the comparisons with other people, your own expectations, that I thought I was doing well and so on. And then all of a sudden something happens. So the life of a wave is very, very vulnerable. And then, what is it? There's a Western saying, really, I like this saying very much. It says, life is a bitch and then you die. It really is a very good thing. I mean, if you think that somehow I can survive the criticisms and so on, then I will be okay. No. You'd have only limited chance, and after a while it just collapses and so on. This is just staying with that subject. The criticisms do not stop even when you are ready to die. You would think that people are only perhaps in the last day or so. People start shedding tears and this, that, or the other, and sort of you're looking around and say, "Wow, that's good." Somebody is shedding tears. Are you crying for me? And they say, "Yes." So you feel a little bit happy. That's good. At least at the time of my death, somebody is. But this smallness of the criticism does not stop all life long. It is a crazy life, I tell you. So look at the small mistake that the wave does. Instead of being the whole ocean, imagine the life of a wave. he was to see that I am really the water. What a amazing thing! That nothing bothers me. Waves come and other waves are in me. I am in them. And the whole thing just changes dramatically just by the small mistakes, just the identity. And it's really interesting how we, in spite of being told about all of this, we still don't do much about it. It's very funny. We keep on going, class, okay, I think I'm very busy. I'm going to go to watch the Warriors game. This is what is called, one of the sadhanas is mumukshutvam. Mumukshutvam means, so it's called sananta. Sananta means intense desire to be free. And Adi Shankara has given this example that it's when your hair is on fire, you don't think about whether you have lipstick on your face or not. Do I have the right makeup? You are in deep trouble. And if you don't put it out, you're done. So this is the thing. It's we have to really have, that just means, it means we are just sort of like we are daydreaming. We don't have no idea what an important thing this is, and we keep on just pushing it down, and it becomes a trivial part of even the study I'm talking about. It just becomes an unimportant part of life. And so we must remind ourselves, it is just I mean, you know, if you were to do a analysis of investment versus gain, and we continuously misjudge it. If you were told you put in $1 in this new company, that has happened many times in my life. I remember when Microsoft was going public, so I had a colleague. He says, you know, put some money into Microsoft. This is going to be very well. And so I said, no, one of these days, I don't know. I don't have that much cash, and besides, I am not. So I just said, biggest mistake of my life. Google was another mistake, but that was not really a mistake. My son wouldn't let me put any money, which was a mistake on all our parts to accept him, because he was already a director. He knew what was going on before they went public, and he told both my son and me, no, I don't want any Kapoor name on buying things, because I may be jailed if I found out. And we knew it was going to do very well, but we said, okay, we have lost so much opportunity. And so this happens all the time. You have investment and you have return. If you could tell that by doing some viveka vichara, you can conquer death and be totally happy. The disparity between investment and return is the biggest possible. Nothing in the whole creation can be more than that. Nothing. But why we don't do it, I have no idea. It's just amazing. It's just lack of understanding, lack of trust. Is it really possible? I am not so sure. So anyway, this is the thing. So the viveka and vichara will give you mind-boggling thing, and this you have to do this. You have to do this because it is praptasya prapti. It is not something that you have to do to make an attempt. It's not something that you are not there and then one day you will be there. We are just denying the presence of Ishvara as myself, not the presence, the identity of Ishvara. And we don't even make an attempt at it. It's just incredible. So the gist of all this is, the Shastra says, please do viveka, do indiscriminative inquiry, just for yourself, and see for yourself. And it gives you the methods. And it says, please be rational. So here, the rationality is defined by the Sanskrit word tarka. So tarka means logic. So rationality means logic. But the logic that we can employ, when we are adults, so we can think properly. And when we think properly, we go for logic. So the logic needs to be consistent with what the Shastra is saying. Otherwise, it becomes what is called kutarka. Kutsita tarka means that it's a wrong logic. So an example of the wrong logic is, where is Ishvara? I don't see him. And so if the Ishvara was there, shouldn't I be able to see him? And another tarka is, there is so much injustice in this world. I think, how can there be a kind God? There's no kind God. How can you have so much dukkha? Especially if somebody's offspring dies. You are 60, 70 and your kids die. How can you you cannot have faith in God. You just say, forget it. There's nothing. So the tarka which is not consistent with the Shastra should be avoided. Should be avoided because you don't know enough to be able to answer the logical questions that your mind raises. And especially if you get some confirmation from other people who are also kutarki. And so then you all, get together and say, this whole thing, religion is just bad. And spirituality doesn't mean anything. So, but the tarka has to be employed, but it has to be consistent with what the Shastra is saying. Shastra says something, and on the face of it, it doesn't make any sense. But the Shastra will never mislead you. Shastra means the word of the Ishvara. And so the whole Creator is not going to mislead you. All you have to do is to find out if there is the Ishvara's word available anywhere. Like many of the Westerners, for example, I sympathize with them. They look around for many things and so on and so forth. And then they find, is there something that is available which is foolproof? And so they have to search. And where you are born as a Westerner, you don't have ready access to this Shastra. And even amongst Indians, even amongst Hindus, you have so many side things that you go in. It's a wonder that we can stick to it. But it's all there. So the Shastra means the word of Ishvara, and means that even when it does not make sense to me obviously, I have to persist with it. So this is what is called a Shastra Anukula Tarka, the one which is consistent with the Shastra. So here we are using Shastra Anukula Tarka. So what the Shastra is saying, listen. So in this line of reasoning which is now going on with Anvaya Vatireka and so on, this is Shastra Anukula Tarka. So for example, the Kutarka is that how did this world come about? This is the Stephen Hawking's Kutarka, that it all just came about through some explosion, and then it all just happened, and I can explain it all. There's a couple of things that I'm not sure of, but So that's what are you not sure of? Well, the basic as examiner still not sure why it happened. And so this is all kutarka. Shastra says, please think. Can something come out of nothingness? Is that logical? Think about it. And the answer is, well, maybe. Stephen Hawking says it. Bless his soul, he's gone. Why am I criticizing him? But, just anyone. So you then you start comparing Shastra with Stephen Hawking's. Shastra says, please, 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 think about it. So then the next step is, if that's the case, then what happens? So then it says that it is all a question of manifestation and non-manifestation. Manifestation and non-manifestation. Beginning is just a manifestation of what is already there. That's all. Just like you have ornaments that come out of gold, become gold again. Even when you are ornament, you are still a gold, but now you have some identity, and then this is exactly what it is. The same thing is true for the day and night. During night, your identity collapses, as we will repeat that in a minute, and during the day, it comes up into something. That's exactly what happens. The death and life are exactly the same. The whole pralaya is exactly the same. So this is Shastra Anukula Tarka that we have to apply. Anyway, going back to the text that we are doing, so the Panchakosha Viveka and the Anvaya Vatireka is the method of doing Viveka. Method. And without this, Shastra tells us, this is not one of those optional things that you may want to think about, perhaps. No. It is central to the whole thing. Why is it central? Because without doing that, you are in a circle. You are in a whirlpool. That's exactly what happens, because you have desires that are unfulfilled, and in the meantime, your body gives up. Desires are still there, and the law of the nature is that anything which you desire, you will get it. You will get it. Might take you, 5,000 lives, but you will get it. And so you keep on chasing your own tail over and over and over again. So the only way to get out of that is to do Viveka. And the Viveka is, as you know, it is not something that I am not today and tomorrow I will be. It's that my identity today is not pure. It's mixed. As the example of the air and the akasha shows. So this is one of the very basic tenets of Vedanta, which says avicharita siddham dvaitam. Dvaitam means the sense of duality is purely based on non-inquiry. This should be just planted in our heart. Avicharita siddham dvaitam. And another way of expressing that is the thing called vicharam na sahate. Vicharam na sahate. So this is exactly the difference between Prama and Brahma. So Prama and Brahma are two different things altogether. Brahma means it has a status of frightening you, of moving you. So the example of the snake and rope is a very good one. And so there, the Brahma is, you have a Brahma that this is a moving snake. And as I've told you, this was something when Swami Maheshanji pointed out, I said, wow. Swamiji said, look at this. How can something turn an inert object into a live thing? But Maya's Shakti is just incredible. It's just like, you just touch this and it becomes like a man. movie, talking. He says, it's possible? Maya can do this? So an inert rope can become a live snake? That's why this example is used very often. There are lots of other examples used. There are two examples used. One is the rope and snake, and then the other one is, this is called Nivritti Marga. So this rope snake example gives you a definition of problems. Nivritti Marga, where you want to get away from something. It's fearful. You want to get away from it. Then there is an example for Pravritti Marga, which is the mother of pearl and the silver, where you have a useless cigarette wrapper in the modern adage, or in the old one where you had the mother of pearl, which shines in the sunlight, and you suddenly feel, oh my goodness, I think this is a piece of silver. So this is called Pravritti Marga. You go towards it when it is totally useless. This is what our life consists of. It's a combination of Nivritti and Pravritti. We want to avoid some problems, and we want to go towards some perceived things. And in doing so, the only thing we don't do is to examine, who am I? Who am I that is doing Pravritti and Nivritti and all of these kinds of things? What is it leading to? What is my basic nature? That we don't do. And so Brahma and Brahma are very interesting. Brahma means the one that appears to be true and captivates you, captures you, and it stems from avicharam. You just feel that this is something, it is there. You have your own imagination. This is a snake, or it could be even. And there are a lot of other examples that the rope can be taken in as a garland, or as a hose, water hose. But there the problem is, not the problem, but the limitation of the example is that it doesn't bother you that much. So what? So you'd mistake the rope to be a hose. The mistaking a rope to be a snake is very appropriate, because something which is harmless appears as harmful to you. And so therefore, Brahma means that something which is present, but only is present until you start inquiring into it. And Brahma, Ma means knowledge. Brahma means definite knowledge. Prakarshena Ma. And so Brahma means it may not appear true at first until you go closer and examine it, until you do some vichara on it. So they're just the opposite. The one is ready to frighten you, but it depends on your not inquiring into it. And Prama is that it may appear to be vague at first, but the more you go into it, it stays with you, and it becomes more and more definite. And so a snake, the mistaking of the snake depends on the fact that you were not really that carefully looking at it. You just got a glimpse of it, and then you said, "Oh my God, there's a snake in the room." And then after that, you cannot examine it, because you're so afraid that you don't want to look at it. You just have the image in your mind, and that's it. And so it depends on it, stays with you. Whereas Prama means that you just say, "Is it really true?" And then if you were to do a flashlight, or if somebody else does it for you, then you say, "Oh my goodness, that was just a mistake." So therefore, in summary, the Panchakosha Viveka is so necessary because life presents itself as a Brahma. This is the issue. it is tinged with some mistake, some ajnanam. Every possible experience in your life, if you were to distill it, you look at the common element to it, it has Brahma written all over it. It has Ajnanam written all over it. The very nature of the world is Ajnanam. And here I was reading just recently on one of the books by Swami Maheshananji, where he was saying that he was examining a slightly different subject from this, but then it's nature of samsara, very beautiful. He was saying that, look, even our experiential joys of the world itself is dukkha. So this is a bombastic statement. What? At least give us some credit for the fact that we have some joy in life and so on. So if you examine it, these transitory joys are also samsara. They're also dukkha. And why? Because Swami Dayanand used to express this in another way. He was talking about the nature of the drowning man. Their languages are slightly different, examples are slightly different, but they're pointing out the same thing. So Swami Maheshanji is saying, look, when you have pure dukkha, some kind of a tragedy in your life has occurred, then that's very obvious that that's dukkha. You know, there's no problem. You can identify it and say, my goodness, this is how people commit suicide and so on and so forth. The whole thing just doesn't make any sense. But supposing you have a minor problem, some kind of a minor problem, either physical problem, emotional problem or something, followed by some sukha. So now you can argue that life is full of dukkha and sukha. That's okay. I can manage it somehow or the other. Swami Maheshanji says, look, even the sukha that you experience is also dukkha. How? Because the sukha that you get in your life is an invitation to continue in dukkha. You have a false hope that I am okay. This is what Swami Dayanand used to say that in the case of a drowning person. He was one of his favorite examples. He says, a person that, I think I've told you this before, a person who knows how to swim has no problems. And a person who is already drowned has no problems. What is the problem? It's gone. He's in a different world altogether. The people that he's left behind have problems, but that fellow is gone. But the person who's drowning has lots of problems. And one of the problems is that you seem to be temporarily be able to tread the water and you feel I'm okay. And then the next wave comes and then you just swallow it again and you say, oh my God, I'm about to go. And then just when you think that I'm about to go, something nice happens and you are able to float for a while. So Swami Maheshanji points out that this is an important thing to see, that my experiences are not partially samsara and partially non-samsara. It's not as though this is exactly how we lead our lives. Because we have some problems and some non-problems, and all we do is minimize the non-problems and minimize the problems and maximize the non-problem. And then we evaluate the whole life and say there was a mixture. And no, even the semblance of some sukha is also a captivating thing that keeps you in dukkha all your life. So So the end result of that is that the whole world is nothing but samsara, is full of dukkha. And so therefore, it behooves us to do some viveka. Anyway, so going back to so this is not an option. Sooner or later. So when you say vichara, you have to do atma vichara, as we did that in the special class a couple of weeks ago. Without atma vichara, atma kripa, and you can just study anything, any books you want, and ultimately you just have to be a intelligent inquirer on your own. On your own. So do not be a permanent student. Don't just say, oh, these classes are good, I'm learning something and so on. You have to eventually become your own guru, your own thinking. And the only way to do that is to take the help of Ishvara and say, I am ready to do some Atma Vichara. And this is the way to do Atma Vichara. And so the Atma Vichara is, you have to isolate yourself from all the mixtures. Because the mixtures are giving you Brahma. Like a person who says you cannot distinguish between Akasha and Vayu, then you are not truthful. If you think that if for a child the atmosphere is Akasha, it is not. It has got two things mixed in there. And so if you wanted to do if you wanted to be a complete absence of any mixture of any kind, just be yourself. And in the case of Akasha, it's not that important. So what? You know, somebody knows Akasha. But here, this is the difference between being a wave and the water. A huge difference. And so Shastra encourages you to start doing the Viveka. So in the verses that we've been studying, now we can get back to the text proper. It says, do this. The only way to do Viveka is to think about when two things are seen together, ask yourself, is it possible that the two things are not seen together? Sometimes they are seen together and sometimes they are not. In those cases, is it possible that one of the elements of, say, two things is present in both situations, and in the other case, one of the factors disappears? And then you can say, well, that means, because don't you want to isolate yourself as being an independent person? So you say, yes, I want to really be an independent person. But right now you're getting mixed up with things where you become dependent. And then you say, how? How can I... So there it says, really speaking, think about it. Right now your conclusion about who you are is a combination of who you are along with some things that you are not. And please, so you're looking at it collectively, that I am the body, Annamaya Kosha. When in fact there are two things involved. The body is one factor, the Jagrat Avastha body, and the Atma is the other factor. So now in verse number 39 it says, let's go to 38. So in the dream stage, so you just look at this. The dreams and deep sleep and all of these are very carefully constructed for you to think. Do not waste the opportunity to do vichara. You don't just say, oh, I was dreaming and then I went to sleep and then now I'm awake. I've done that many times and it's probably going to happen and I don't know why. But no. Every time you sleep, every time you dream, every time you wake up, every moment, your attention should be, my goodness, how is this possible? So there, this verse number 38 starts with the first part of the Viveka, Anvaya Vyatireka. So Anvaya Vyatireka, of course, as you know, in verse number 37 is the one that where A and B are both there in one case, and only A is there in the other case, B has disappeared. So that means A must be me. Because the whole thing is about me, I, Atma. And if there is something that is attached to me for a while but disappears, like a virus. Virus comes and attaches yourself to yourself and then leaves, hopefully. And so the virus is not you, it's an outsider. It's an outsider. And what stays with it, which was already healthy to begin with and had the unfortunate habit of getting affected by the virus, but become healthy again, is you. And so similarly, I is the you. And in the swapna, the sthula deha is not there. So that means sthula deha is an incidental part of you, not an intrinsic part of you. It's like you paint your face yellow and you look like a yellow person, but the yellowness is not intrinsic to you. It is just incidental. So similarly, the sthula deha, and you're not going to just simply reject sthula deha just outright, but think about it. This is the opening. This is the invitation to think. And my goodness, in fact, it's funny that for a good 1/3 of your living, you are not the sthula sharira. You're there for 2/3 of the time, not there for the 1/3 of the time. And so you cannot say that the sthula sharira is you. It has to be intrinsic. So that's what he's saying. In number 38, abhane sthula dehasya swapne yat bhanam atmanaha. So in swapne, there is bhanam of the self, bhanam atmanaha. How can you say that I was there? Because you say I was dreaming. You were there as the dreamer. So you were there. Yad bhanam atmanaha. And sthula dehasya abhana is absence of sthula deha. He says this is what is called saha anvaya vyatirekaha. And sad bhane anva anabhasanam. So while you are there, for a good part of the night, there is absence of sthula sharira. Because if it was intrinsic to you, it will never go, but it goes. So that should trigger a line of inquiry. My goodness, this is really something. And then we go forward. So this is one stage. Then the next stage is the number 39. Linga abhane sushuktao. So now Linga Sharira means all of your subtle bodies that later on will say in in verse number 40, prana, manaha and dhihi. Three things comprise of the linga sharira. So that's interesting. In the sthula sharir, there's only, everything is there in the sthula sharir, in the swapni, in the jagrata avastha. So you have both linga sharira, and in fact later on there are three koshas, three different elements, three types of elements. So one is jagrata avastha that has sthula deha. Then swapna has linga deha, which consists of prana, mano, dhiya, the end of the first line of 40. And then what will happen is that in the deep sleep, only the fifth element is left, karana sharira. So in the other two, there is karya sharira, which consists of sthula sharira, then prana sharira, then mano sharira, and dhi sharira. So manaha and dhi are they are very similar. We'll come to that in some other, there is an interesting, somewhat of a difficult verse, coming up 40 and 41 to understand. But anyways, in simple terms, you lost the sthula sharira and you were still there. Now, when you switch over from the swapnavastha, swapne to sushupti, you lose the other three also. Prana you lose. The prana is functioning, but you're not aware of it. You don't say, I am breathing. So we are talking, bhana means cognition. Yeah, bhana means cognition, knowledge. So you have no knowledge of prana. You know knowledge of prana in the sushupti avastha. In swapna avastha, you do have the knowledge of prana. When you say I am, we exactly do the same thing. We have exactly the same experiences. Then you can even say, oh my gosh, I can't even breathe. You're choking me. That means you're aware of prana. You're choking me in dream. So you can say you're choking me, you're having a fight, and you say, don't do that, you're choking me. That means that you're aware of prana. You're certainly aware of manaha and dhiyaha. Anyways, those three things are there in the linga sharira is there in the sushupti avastha. And so that's what number 39 says. Linga abhane sushuptau. In the sushupti avastha, even the linga sharira, all three of them disappear. And what's in them will be dealt with in number 40 in a minute. Linga abhane sushuptau syat atmanaha bhanam anvayaha. That means that you are still there. And then so in the very initial stages, then some people will say, I know, how do you know that I am still there? So this is kutarka, another example of kutarka. Because I am not there in deep sleep, and therefore you cannot say there is anvaya. So here Shastra says, listen, fellow, you are there, because if you are not there, there is no connectivity between deep sleep and your memory of it. There is no connection. You will say, who are you talking to? What happened? I don't know. What is deep sleep? Nothing. But no, you're the one who says, I slept so well last night. I took Tylenol PM. And I slept so well. Or if I was so tired or whatever. Or I didn't sleep well. whatever. But that memory is there. So you must have been there. But then if you say, well, how can I be there because I don't remember anything? Exactly. When you say that I don't remember anything, I don't remember anything specific. I was the one who was aware of I don't know anything. Darkness, complete lack of any cognition. And so here, this is interesting, make a note of this. So, the Karana Sharira is still there. Remember, we have 5 koshas. So you have Sthula Sharira, and then you have Linga Sharira consisting of these 3, and then you have the Karana Sharira. And so the Karana Sharira is still there. So Swami Maheshanji gave an example. He says, supposing, so Karana Sharira means it is the stuff which makes up everything. It is always there. Until it is finally removed, it is there. So he gives the example that suppose you have a yellow colored yarn. So when the yarn is made and you dip it in the yellow color, and now you have yellow colored yarn. So if you make a kurta out of it, you don't have to color the kurta again. Supposing you wanted to make a yellow colored kurta, you just use the yellow colored yarn. So the yellowness of the yarn is the karana, and the kurta is the expression of that karana. So therefore, the karana sharira of the sushupti avastha, it means I don't know. This is the karana sharira. Now, this karana sharira expresses itself in the swapna avastha and jagrata avastha differently. If you look at the jagrata avastha, it says, I don't know myself. In fact, you don't say that. You don't know. You think you know yourself, but you don't. So the ignorance of the self is still there. So in the sushupti avastha, you have ignorance of everything. And in the other two, there is some partial ignorance that comes. This is what is called anyatha grahanam. Agrahanam and anyatha grahanam. Anyway, we're going into a lot of details. Let's proceed on. So in the sushupti avastha, all that he's pointing out is, do this analysis. You left the sthula sharira going from jagrata avastha to sushupti avastha. And in going from sushupti avastha to from swapna avastha to the jagrata avastha, you left the other 3 also. Now you left all 4. One is left. But before he discusses that, he, Vidyaranya ji, did we finish all let's do both the lines of the 39. So, linga abhane sushuktau syat atmanaha bhanam anvayaha vyatirekas tadbhane. Tadbhane means atmanaha bhane. On the cognition of atma, lingasya abhanam uchyate. Vyatirekaha. Lingasya abhanam vyatirekaha luchyate. You see the anvaya, the arrangement of the words. So he's defining. So he's defining the anvaya vyatireka process. That look at this. Something is there. Atma is there. Now linga deha also has disappeared. So the linga deha also is really not intrinsic to you. This is a very interesting thing. So, when you say I'm alive, people say, thank goodness I'm alive. It's so nice to be living. This is also a huge mistake. A huge mistake. In fact, this is the ultimate mistake. Your nature is not being alive. Your nature is being. There's no aliveness or deadness in you. This is what we have to inquire, really. Because right now we stop. I'm alive. You imagine the problems generated by the belief and the conclusion that I am alive. Just imagine that. Why? Why do you say that? Because when you say I am alive, it is kind of like saying I am a wave. It is kind of like saying I am dependent on another. When you say I am alive, obviously it means I'm so happy that I can breathe. I'm so happy that my body is functioning. All kinds of problems. You're relieved that at least you're alive. You're not dead. But even that is a huge mistake. Atma is not alive. Atma is. The very isness of the aliveness is you. So anyway, so that means that is called Vyatireka. Vyatireka tu tad abhane lingasya abhanam iti uchyate. Vyatireka uchyate. So lingasya abhane means that everything which the linga sharira. So now in 40 he segments what is in the linga sharira. So in the linga sharira he says now tat vivekat viviktaha syuh koshaha prana manodhiyaha. So he says, by doing some further analysis of tad vivekat of the subtle body, the discriminative analysis of the subtle body, you find that they are vivikta, they are segmented separately. They are three separate things, but they all collectively work together to act as a linga sharira. What are the three segments? Pranaha, manaha, and dhiyaha. So anyway, I won't spend a lot of time on this. How much time do we have? 30. So anyway, let's finish the verse. So tad vivekat viviktaha syuh koshaha. The koshaha viviktaha syuh. And what are the koshas? Pranaha, manaha, and dhiyaha. So pranaha means, this is interesting. These are old words that really they're not very significant. I don't know how this has been, even some of our older acharyas keep on using it. Vital air. He doesn't say anything about vital. Physiological function is what is called prana. Pranaha means physiological functions. Means all the things that are going on inside your body to keep it alive. This is what is called prana. So pranaha, udanaha, and everything, all of them. So it's not vital air. I don't know what it means. It's just some kind of a name in it that has been given. And everybody keeps adopting it. I've never really warmed up to it. And so the English translation would be physiological function. So prana, manaha. So manaha, of course, is my identity as thinking, debating, thinking, and so that's always uh, part and parcel of my identity with the jiva. So when you have a jiva, that means that you are thinking, you are reacting, you're planning, and so on. So this is mana. Then dhiyaha can best be explained by two ways of looking at it. So one is definite knowledge, not thinking in general. So for example, that you have a brother is not part of thinking. You know it. There's a distinction between, let's see, I think he's, have I seen him before? No, maybe, I think I met, this happens to us all the time. Just recently is so interesting when we had when Seema Sahni passed away, so we had gone to a funeral. Zarina was also there. And so there I met some people I had not seen for a long time. And behind us there was an older lady who was sitting next to my mother-in-law, and behind my mother-in-law. And she says, I understand that in this country, Kanak Lata Kapoor's brother lives here. This is my sister, Kanak Lata. And she says, yes, he's my son-in-law, he's right there. So I actually did namaste to her. Then then her daughter, we had known her like 30, 40 years ago. And we have forgotten about that. I never met her. But anyway, there's general thinking about people. But for your brother is or sister or mother or something very definite, it's called knowledge. So dhiyaha has two aspects to it. One is definite knowledge. I think the more important one is what is called Vijnanamaya Koshaha. The same thing. This is dhiyaha means Vijnanamaya Koshaha. So Pranamaya Koshaha, Manomaya Koshaha, and Vijnanamayam Koshaha means myself as a person, my identity as a person. I am Vijay Kapoor. And so this identity, ahankara, is the result of this dhiyaha. And all of them, tehi tatra guna avastha bhed matrat prithak kritaha. Because they have different gunas, they have different functions, that's how they are separate. But in some way they are all linga sharira, and in some cases they are all slightly different functionaries. So that's the real meaning of the 40. It's not. And Swami Maheswaranji made a very interesting point. He said, people say that manaha and dhiya, they are mental activities. But pranaha is not a mental activity. So it is not something that you can lump in with the others. That's a completely different one altogether. You should have a separate segment for that. He says that the Shastra, this is where the Shastra also presents its analysis in many levels. For instance, if you just look at the basic levels, they will just say this, that, or the other. Then if you go deeper into it, it gives a deeper meaning into it. So Swami Maheswaranji pointed this out. He said, look, if you look at pranaha is also a mental activity. How? How is it a mental activity? So he says what happens is that it is in fact a coalescing different frames into one. So when you say I am moving, so I am moving, you give a beautiful example. You give two examples. So he says, look, in a movie, so the movies have now become an important source of examples to the acharyas, which was not there before. But in the movie, he says, here's what happens. If you analyze the frames of a movie, then what happens is, I remember, I don't know if you, when I was living in Amritsar and I was like 10 years old, my uncle brought this projector. It was kind of like half broken. We had to figure it out how to do it. And then we played it for endlessly. We would play it backwards. And so things that have already broken, fallen in the ground, we play backwards, then it becomes a nice plate at the end. We were that was the greatest thing in our life. Wonderful. We'll say again, do it again, do it again. But if you play a projector, what happens is each frame moves slightly. So your foot moves here. Then the next one, this one. Then the next one is a little bit more. And when you play it together, it seems like there is a smooth movement. In fact, the smooth movement is nothing but a collection of things that are really not moving. You see, that's the thing. Essentially, there is non-movement. But just through the framing of the mind, it appears as though it's moving. And there's a couple of other examples. I won't bother it because I have to go on. So he says the conclusion of this is that the sense of movement, even though it is supported by your karmendriyas and so on, but essentially all the things in your mind really propel you to act out. So those are jnanam, ichcha, movement. Everything is just nothing but the mental things. And Ishvara has made it in such a way that your attempt to move, which comes in packets, are all lumped together and it seems like it's moving. Anyway, that's just one of those things. So this is the next verse that he did. So he says that in the linga sharira, you have certain changes, certain segments that go into it. Let's finish it by going through very quickly in the next 5 minutes, then I'll leave some time for questions. So here, let's go to verse number 41 now. So this is really is a tough one to see, and I'm not sure that we will have really time to do complete justice to it. So I also felt that, anyway, let's just see how it is and then go on. So Sushupti Abhane. So look at the progression, but before going into this verse, look at the progression. So the progression is that I need to see myself without the koshas to be convinced as to who I am. Because right now, I don't have that ability. My view of myself is only along with the koshas. And like I said, I'm alive. It's a kosha. And I don't know what else to do. What do you mean? You mean I'm not alive? That's not true either. And you're saying that I'm alive doesn't make any sense, so I have nowhere to go? This is the issue. I only visualize myself along with my upadhis. It's like a room space that cannot visualize that I am the total space which has no limitations. I can only visualize with respect to what kind of a room space am I. You know, it could be that there's these collapsible walls. So sometimes, you say I'm a collapsible room space, or I'm a fixed room space. But any time, I'm only thinking in terms of a roomness of the space. And if you're told you are Akasha, then you say, I don't know. I can't visualize that. So this is the issue. We always see ourselves with respect to the upadhis or with the koshas. So we've already eliminated all of them with the exception of Karana Sharira. So this verse now makes an attempt, and in my view, this requires a lot of additional ones which may not happen at this time. We will see it over time. But at least the elements, the seed of this thinking has been put together in this one. So he says, Sushupti abhane bhanam tu samadhau atmanah anvayaha. So he says that in samadhi, you can even get rid of Karana Sharira, the last upadhi left. And so a lot of commentary on it. Perhaps we might take it next time, but at least understand the wording, and the full import of that might take a little bit more time. I'll have to reconstruct some of the vision behind it. But let's just look at the word meaning. Sushupti abhane means that okay, let's look at the Sushupti abhane bhanam tu samadhau atmanah anvayaha vyatirekaha tu atmabhane sushupti anavabhasanam. Okay, so it means, basically what it means is that when you see yourself outside of any of the other avasthas, and here the avastha taken is the Sushupti avastha, that when you are awake, it is possible to see yourself without the Jagrat avastha, Sushupti avastha and Swapna avastha. And so we'll discuss it in more details, but I'll give you some brief hints as to what it is done. So it is possible, and in fact this is what happens, and I encourage you to do this. I have benefited a great deal of it. The time of waking should be a very deliberate one. It's a very precious time, just a few seconds, maybe a few minutes. Before you rush off to assume the role that you are about to play, which is present in your mind anyway as samskaras, as vasanas, already there, what you have to do, who you are, before you rush off to do so, lengthen the time when you are just awake and you simply say, I am. And this will be built on, perhaps not even in the basic course like this. It requires a lot of further definition, because this is just a basic course. But just to give you a hint of it, eventually what you will see is you will get a brief opportunity to simply say, I am. Later on, when it becomes clear to you that I am self-existing, self-luminous, then that identity, which is not tinged with you are a woman or a man or a wife or a husband, mother, none of that yet has come into your mind yet. You just am independent. This is an opportunity when you get up, and later on, by doing deliberate nididhyasanam, you can get back to this state. You can do that. This is what you have to appreciate. And when you do that, even a little bit, you have now completed the whole process. What process? You see yourself without any upadhis, without any koshas. Sthula Sharira has not yet come, or even if it is there, you just are not aware of your body. Then Sukshma Sharira, you come out of it. Karana Sharira, you are aware of you have gotten rid of it. I don't know, that feeling is not there. I am Svatasiddha, Swayambhu, Ananda Swarupa. So this is the door that we have to enter. This is what we have to try to master for ourselves. This is the way to do Anvaya Vyatireka. This is to do Panchakosha Viveka. This is what the Shastra is promising. This is the direction, and this is the skill that we have to become very good at. And this is the only way, by the way. It's like one of the ways. It's not like, you can do this, you can do that. No. Everyone in their lives at one time or the other has to go through this door. Everyone. It is not a door to heaven. It is not a door to any afterlife. It is right here and now. This is moksha. It is the highest achievement that you can do. Anyway, so this is just an initial introduction to this whole process, and we will continue in the next class. Om Asatu Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Nityo Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Namaha. Hari Om. Yes?
So this, one of the things in this meditation process that, I don't know where it's been, it was on Vivekananda mentions. He used to tell this sadhus, the guru, and the initiated, that the best place to go and meditate is where you, what do you call that? Yes, people are. So visualize that you are there and your body is burning. So you realize that you are still there. And the body constant. The same sort of concept of when you get up from the deep sleep, you were there, but you didn't know what happened. And you're still here. So when you get up first thing in the morning, you still see your body and you're still not in that waking state. So that's what makes you realize. So my question then is, we know we slept, but we don't know what happened during the deep sleep. So similarly, when we say we die, when we get another rebirth, that intermediate stage, if we don't remember, it's almost like a deep sleep, because we don't know what happened in the deep sleep. But evolution-wise, we have to be born again and go through the physical being of child and adult and all that for the sake of our cosmosity. So the constant I stays always the I. You are always there, regardless.
So what's your question?
So I think that's part of the thing I thought that when he's mentioning this over here, just stopping at the deep sleep stage, and then he said you go beyond that. The limitation of the deep sleep. Why is it we don't remember of past lives?
Past lives? Because it will be too complicated. Why do you need to remember past lives? Why is there a
So
compulsion
we
to?
learn from those mistakes.
You're living the mistakes right now, and so learn from that fact that your associations with the families and so on is meaningless, because you've had so many lives, husbands, and so on and so forth. They're all gone, and so it doesn't really mean anything. So see yourself as something which does not have any connection to the other thing. So this fact you don't have to realize without having to remember all the previous ones. This is a fact. So yeah, it's the same thing. That's the reason for it. There's no reason. It's the complications of previous life. You can't even lead your present life properly. And on top of that, if we have previous things, I wonder what my previous wife was saying, where are my children, what are they doing, and so on and so forth. It will get too complicated.
Yeah, but then that's what we're defining as moksha. Moksha being realizing that state, that you're beyond all this and you
Correct,
are.
yeah. So what? So you can do that right here. You don't have to go through some kind of a shamsman or anything like that. Not necessary. We visualize some kind of a strange thing. No, everyday life you just do vichara. And from there you are able to correctly point out what is going on, what the Shastra is saying, and just dwell with that thought. And then it is because of our doubts that we don't dwell on the thought. We just go into trivial things here and there and so on and so forth. But before we have a chance to, before the chance is lost, we should just do vichara. That is the way to do that. Sorry, there was a question here.
I have two clarifications. So when we were talking about in Jagrat Avastha, the Karan Sharira identifies with I don't know myself.
Correct.
Right? And similarly in Swapna Avastha it would be the same thing,
Yeah,
right?
same
The
one.
thing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then the next question I had, sorry, technical difficulties. Okay. So, So when you were talking about like frames in a movie,
Yeah,
that it's really not moving, but it
Yeah.
appears to be moving.
correct.
So is that because it is, the mithya is a superimposition on the satyam? Why? Because we do see them moving, and
Right.
we are also moving, right, with the prana, with the help of the prana sharira. We are also putting one step in front of the other and moving. So why do you say that we are not really moving? Is it?
Yeah, because the Atma, you're already Vyapakaha.
So the atma is not moving, but
Atma is not moving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright. So again,
But-
it's a mithya of the body, which is
Well,
not
look at it this way.
on the satyam.
See, look at it this way. When you're watching a movie, there's really no, you're right, there's no reality to any of that. But you are all consumed by the drama, which requires movement. Drama requires a lot of movement, a lot of action. And by doing this, you are now completely taken over, and your tears start flowing when the hero and the heroine have to be separated, they have to go to war or something, I don't know, something like that. So you're now completely So in fact, our Acharya says, Swami Maheshanji says, that don't think that your sense of reality cannot be disturbed by mithya. It is done every time when you go to a movie. So similarly, you are watching a movie of your ahankara. The ahankara is moving, body is moving, and you are just taken in by it. You don't realize that you are not moving. You are the very Vyapaka. There is no place for you to go. Where are you not there? So as a result of that, you're just taken in, I'm moving, and so on, as though it is. So that's the example given. That even though, so the element of something that captivates you, makes you cry, is nothing but a pieces of some frames. There's really nothing there. If you were to look at it, you'll stop crying. But no, you are looking at the effect of the movement, and because everything is all coalesced together, you are affected by it.
Thank you.
Ashish, you had a question?
No, just I was just trying to connect some of the previous discussion, and I was thinking that I've also read that time itself is a construct, and that's what happens as a consequence of srishti. And I was just thinking one way of thinking is that if you have like a hologram or something, right? I mean, everything is happening within that glass structure where the hologram happens, and that's where time is created essentially. So there is no actual sense of time in that movie or hologram or whatever you're doing. And the example that we are the glass. The consciousness is that glass, right, through which all this...
Yeah, that's probably a good way to look at it, yeah.
According to this Eckhart Tolle, time is a construct made by human beings. There's no such thing as time. So you talk to nature, talk to a tree, and say, what is the time? The tree will say, what is time? In one of his books, when he talks of the power of now, he says
I think we should stick to people who really are from Shastra and all these other kinds of things. I don't know. Talking anyway, yeah, no, I think you're right. You're right. All these are all possibilities of looking at it that way. Ultimately, this is what we're saying, is that the time is nothing but a mental movement. We were discussing this. Which class were we? I think it was in the Mandukya when we were looking at this. So yeah, it is all the same, pretty much the same. Was another hand somewhere? Yes, sir.
So, I mean, talking about time, I mean, we have a good example of Swapnavastha, right? It may be Jagrata Avastha's very few moments, which can, in Swapnavastha, you have 3-4
There's a different dimension to it. Yeah, exactly. Time is a different dimension to it in the Swapnavastha. Exactly right. Yeah, it's very subjective. That's what Tolle is also saying. It's true. Yeah.
Laman Maharishi also gave some example that when you are ground and you are imagining something, and in that your generation has created within small time of drowning inside. I don't know, I read that.
I'm sorry, what did he say? I'm not quite understood. Say that again. He said what? Sorry?
He talked about the relativity of time.
Okay.
So somebody gets drawn into diving into the water, and within that small dive, he's thinking about so many things, like few generations and whatnot. I have to read it again.
Okay.
He has given a good relativity example.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
Kalpana?